fellow speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am happy to see you gathered here in our capital city of Chennai for the most prestigious of intellectual forums. At the outset, I must thank the leadership team of India Today for choosing to hold this forum here. We appreciate the recognition of South India in general and Tamil Nadu in particular, which is not only known for its economic development over the past several decades, but also for the strong cultural history over several centuries since the Sangam period. I am also hopeful that the intellectual nature of such forums will elevate the nature of political discourse in our region. With today's topic of development or dole is an interesting one, and I assume it was chosen based on the media's perception of the so-called freebie-driven policies of the Dravidian parties that have governed Tamil Nadu for over half a century. I am grateful for this opportunity as I get to explain the unique approach to development and economic growth followed by the Dravidian movement. As the movement's true heir and standard bearer, the DMK is compelled to point out the vast differences between our inclusive approach to growth, which we call social welfare spending, but has been so very unimaginatively called dole, here is simple at best and deliberately misleading at worst, versus the disruptive policies that affect the economically weaker sections and the common man, which are now termed development. True development must be measured with concrete indicators such as per capita GDP and widely used human development indicators such as levels of education, health, and the prevalence of safety and law and order. I hope we can all agree on that. Using such standard definitions and concrete statistics, we can clearly show that high levels of social welfare spending are strongly correlated to high levels of economic development throughout the world, and therefore the presumed dichotomy of the title given to me cannot be true. At a global level, the Scandinavian region leads in both human and economic development on one hand and high levels of social spending on the other. When comparing states within a country, California within the United States proves the same point, as indeed does Tamil Nadu within our own country. Considering a basket of measures of progress and development, per capita GDP, broad measures of education and health, communal harmony, and the prevalence of law and order, I am proud to say that Tamil Nadu has stayed far above the national average for decades, and in fact has been at the top spot for most of the time. It is in this context that I would like you to understand the unique socio-economic ecosystem that Tamil Nadu has been nurturing for decades, based on one of the fundamental policies of the Dravidian movement. We believe that no development is holistic unless all sections of the society benefit from it, and hence all policies have been formulated to encompass social, economic, and political development, which is also what our Constitution's preamble states. I must say that the DMK has ruled this state for 5 terms, all in keeping with those basic principles. I use this opportunity to explain a few of the social welfare schemes brought out by the DMK, which can be considered as model governance. For the purpose of this debate, I am stating schemes from the period 2006 to 2011. 1. To abolish poverty, 1 kilo of rice for 1 rupee scheme was started, and about 1 crore 85 lakh families benefited from this scheme. Second, 22 lakh 40,739 poor farming families benefited from the waiver of cooperative loans to the tune of 7,000 crore rupees. Third, 20,11,517 poor pregnant women were provided with financial assistance of rupees 6,000 each. Fourth, under the Kanhaiya insurance scheme, 2,70,265 poor people benefited from life-saving surgeries at a cost of rupees 702 crores. Yet during the same period, investments in Tamil Nadu increased by about 3.5%, which proves that welfare expenditure in a state will eventually drive capital investment as well. Tamil Nadu had investments of rupees 46,091 crores, with employment opportunities created for more than 7 lakh residents of Tamil Nadu, including both government and private enterprises. Linking of multiple rivers within the state at a cost of rupees 558 crores, including the Kaveri Gundaru, the Tamaraparani, Karumeniyaru, Nambiyaru, to name a few. The metro rail in Chennai, a desalination of seawater plant at Minjur in North Chennai. The Hogenakkal water supply scheme was commissioned for a total of 15 water supply schemes at a cost of rupees 1,929 crores. Self-help groups for women were introduced during our tenure to empower women financially, and in these 5 years, 4,41,311 groups were formed and loan assistance of 6,342 crores was dispersed. To provide a world-class library for students, the Anna Centenary Memorial Library was built at Koturpuram at a cost of 171 crores. If these welfare schemes and projects were not fruitful, we would not have had a global consulting firm such as Oxford Analytica declare Tamil Nadu as the most investor-friendly state among all the 28 states in India at the time. Confronted with such statistics, naysayers will inevitably raise the chicken or egg question. Does economic development enable high levels of welfare spending, or do high levels of welfare spending drive economic development? The answer, as in the case of most such questions, is that we need both the chicken and the egg, because together they allow for a virtuous cycle of continuity, whereas any one on its own becomes a dead end. In the case of social spending and economic progress, the additional variable is the extent to which one enables the other will change over time as a state's or country's overall development advances. We in the Dravidian movement believe that the bedrock of development in any economy, whether emerging or relatively advanced, is social equality and communal harmony. If these conditions are not in place, economic development cannot be inclusive, and consequently all efforts at development, whether through welfare spending or otherwise, will face severe hurdles. These truths were first established by the Justice Party, which is the grandfather of the Dravida Munnetra Kalagam, which was founded by Arinyar Anna and currently run by Thalaivar Kalaignar. Over the 100 years since the birth of the Dravidian movement, successive generations have never wavered in this commitment to social equality and communal harmony, as they are essential components of natural justice as well as the foundation for economic development. I fear that this aspect is not clearly understood by many in the media. Does this imply that the DMK is for all freebies or doles without qualification? Absolutely not. We understand the difference between expenses and investment. But we also know that the accounting categorization of current expenses versus capital investment in the state budget is not the best way to distinguish between the two. we would encourage a more nuanced analysis of so-called freebies to make a more sophisticated distinction between wasteful spending and thoughtful investment. I would like to share a few examples of thoughtful investment under so-called freebie schemes. MGR expanded the noon meal scheme introduced by Kamaraj. Later, Kalaignar changed it as the nutritious meal scheme. Isn't that a thoughtful investment for a healthier and stronger future generation? Old age pension schemes have benefited lakhs of senior citizens from depending on their children for food and shelter. Isn't providing food and shelter to senior citizens a right that they have to expect from their government? To provide access to information and knowledge irrespective of literacy levels or distribution of papers, the DMK distributed TVs to all houses and families. Isn't that a good investment? We maintain transparency in all these schemes, including opposition party members in every tender that was put up. If any investment helps the growth of knowledge and is done in a transparent way, we would consider that a reasonable investment. I have already described also the successful public distribution system in Tamil Nadu. In fact, the Supreme Court has said that Tamil Nadu's public distribution system is a model scheme for all other states to follow. In my view, government has to be bold in taking decisions until growth schemes reach every man, even in the rural villages. So, governments have to strive for both business growth and economic growth. If you understand the difference in DMK's freebies from a basis of its social and economic intentions, then we should never need to have such a discussion as this topic again. Some freebies are clearly necessary for the nation's development, and DMK has always worked for growth under the principles equality and communal harmony. Before the 2016 Tamil Nadu elections, I toured all 234 constituencies to meet the public and understand their needs under a journey called Namakku Name. During this journey, I met farmers, vendors, entrepreneurs, working labor, youngsters, students, and women, and interacted personally with all of them. The DMK was then the first political party to prepare its election manifesto based on the expectations and reflections that I received from the public during this journey. This 2016 election manifesto, with social welfare schemes, infrastructure projects, and overall development in terms of economic growth, was well appreciated by the people of Tamil Nadu. In fact, some of our opponents took this manifesto to the Election Commission, claiming that we were violating the norms and declaring so-called freebies. However, the Election Commission rejected their plea as they found that we had enough resources in our plans to fulfill our obligations and that the plans were realistic and development oriented. Thus, our manifesto was even recognized by the Election Commission. Our schemes for growth are very clear. It is different from other parties and those especially that claim to oppose freebies and are speaking about pseudo growth. Right from the days of the Justice Party, the Dravidian movement's motto has always been to give importance to education, to bring about balanced economic development through both public and private sectors, to strive to liberate entrepreneurs to create value without government interference, to provide quality government services in sufficient quantity to all citizens, and to make sure that the government does not fail in its duty to provide a safety net to safeguard those who fall through the cracks of economic development schemes. I am not particularly qualified to comment on other people's approach to development in general because the history of other parties does not provide the kind of track record that the Dravidian movement does. And frankly, because much of what they say perplexes me and their actions don't match their words. But I would be remiss if I did not use this opportunity to condemn in the strongest words the pain and havoc wrought on the nation, and particularly the poorest and weakest sections of society, by the slow motion disaster that demonetization continues to be. When the scheme was first announced, I was one of the first persons to welcome it, with hopes that it would put an end to corruption and black money. But after witnessing how the poor and rural people continue to suffer due to an ill-planned and ill-conceived implementation, I want to stand among the first to condemn the move. So I want to leave you with one thought today. If this kind of highly regressive policy reflects on the approach of a so-called development-oriented party, then it won't help in any way for the economical growth of a country. DMK has always worked for growth within the principles of equality, inclusion, and communal harmony. According to me, both corporate growth and common man's development are important to a government. If these two serve as two eyes, then government's policies towards accelerating growth serve as the third eye. If one wishes to call the people-oriented welfare schemes of the Dravidian movement as freebies, even after hearing our clear explanation and seeing our results, then we are happy to wear that label with pride. I thank you once again for this opportunity and take my leave.